Spenser Granese, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How you doing, dude?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
You know, I don't know. I feel like there's no way to not address the fires going on. We were just speaking about it. You live in L.A.
Yeah.
Lots of people who have done this podcast live in L.A., so I just want to take a moment to, you know, in that wicked PR thing, hold some space for all the people out there.
No, for sure, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a devastating time. I mean, I'm just feeling for all my friends out there. I'm in New York here currently, and I feel this strange kind of heavy guilt not being out there because my cat is out there, and then also like just the people that I immensely care about, and feeling like I'm kind of removed from it, even though I feel like I should be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a strange thing I'm kind of combating right now, but it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible, and it's terrifying on a macro level, and it feels oddly. I think there's an existential feeling that comes with it. It's not just like there's fires. It's like
it almost in some ways seems so much of a metaphor for the business and LA as an industry and a city.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just the world in general, but like, yeah, the business especially, and it's yeah.
No, I know what
horrible.
you're saying, but to anchor that in a positive direction, we were just talking before we hit record. You know, I hadn't seen you in 4 years.
Yeah.
And you and I connected because I think you like the podcast, right? And you're always a great guy, and we're both over the other side of 30, but I only say that in the sense that like I feel like with actors, there's very rare times when you see other people and you're genuinely in a sincere way happy for success for them. And you're one of the people that I've like always just been so happy for you.
Oh, thank
and in the 4 years since I've seen you, everything that you've been doing, man, is incredible. And I'm just genuinely proud of you, man. You've been crushing it, and you deserve it, and great things are going to continue to happen. And I'm excited to talk to you today, sort of kind of shift that from fire to this. I just want to say congratulations, man. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much, man. That means a lot, and it's when people say those things to me, I'm always like, oh, yeah, thanks. Like I have trouble taking that in, but I just want to say thank you. It does mean a lot that you feel that way, because it is a thing in this business, where I think in the beginning I started like that, where I was like, there was a jealousy or envy, and which were human beings, right? That's going to happen anyway. And I don't think it's like necessarily a horrible thing, but it's just about your own self-awareness about it. And I think I kind of switched things over for me, where I just like, I want to almost meet the people that maybe I'm quote unquote audition nemesis or something like that, because I think once I meet them, I root for them, because it's like you have this idea of somebody in your head. If you don't meet them and you're like, well, I don't know, maybe that person sucks and I don't want them to succeed.
I'm about to name like 5 actors. I'm not going to do it, but
no, totally. But that's the thing, is like we're all on our own journey, not to be too cliche, but it's like we are. And I find when I've met these guys, which I have, somehow they've found their way into my universe in weird ways and stuff, where I've met them. And I'm like, they were cool, and I wish them nothing but like the best, and I want their success. I want everybody to succeed that is really driven and ambitious and like really goes for it, Yeah, I don't know.
It's amazing, man. Thank you for sharing that. I think we need more of that positive energy, because it's been a chaotically dark time in the business and the world, and I think we've kind of lost sight of like being able to root for each other, and rising tides lift all ships. But in that true vein, as my audience knows, let's start at the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
It's a loaded question. I mean, I was
Let's
born.
dive into it.
Yeah. I was born in Massachusetts.
Okay.
I lived in Massachusetts. I lived many different towns. My parents divorced when I was 6, and so I think from the time between I was born to 14 when I left Massachusetts, I moved to probably almost 30 different like homes.
Wow, truly like all around Massachusetts, or
all around Massachusetts.
Got it.
That's just Massachusetts. And then I got moved to Virginia. My mother.
Where?
Roanoke.
I'm from Richmond.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
No, so Richmond was like a second home for me. Like when I got older, I would go there. Like me and my friend would drive, because there was fucking jack shit in Roanoke.
Yeah, I know Roanoke well.
Yeah, you do?
You know Borat, when he does he did the
rodeo.
That was Roanoke.
I remember. Yeah, he did the rodeo there, man. We would go, because I grew up in music and like punk metal, like that was my world, and there was not much of it in Roanoke. So Richmond was the hub for that. That was close.
Lamb
Oh my
of
God. Avail.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just a lot of good, and just like a really good like punk scene there in general.
Well, so to kind of put some ages on it. So like, at what point do you leave Massachusetts and go to Virginia?
Oh, when I'm 14 years old.
Got it. So up till 13, then you know you're bouncing around different public schools, or
yeah. I think I went to, I don't know, 4 or 5 schools.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of moving around. I mean, it was, you know.
Did you have an idea that wasn't normal, so to speak, at that age, or
no,
you
not
didn't?
really. No, I mean, it was just kind of like riding the wave of where my parents were going and where
And
my
were you
mother-
bouncing between parents?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know that game, but like it. Yeah, it was a lot of movement for sure.
And
I mean,
are your parents artists?
no, I mean, I think deep down, like soul-wise, yes. Like my mother was a painter, so yeah. And then my father is a writer, and he plays a musician, and you know, he always wanted to be an actor. It's where like my love of movies comes from, was kind of him showing them to me when I was really little. But they kind of both went a different trajectory. They kind of, I don't want to say like abandoned that because it's still within them.
Totally.
But they just took a different life path than pursuing arts.
And at what point do you kind of remember like earliest childhood inclinations? Did you feel like you got exposed to the arts and maybe started to develop? Could be movies. You mentioned punk music. Like, what were the? Was there a moment where you felt drawn to it?
Just to art?
Any kind, you know, it could be theater, music, you know, movies, television, like obviously before we get to acting, like what were your earliest memories?
Yeah, I mean, the earliest was watching movies. I remember my first movie that I remember seeing in the theater was the first Ninja Turtles movie in 1990.
The live action.
Yeah, which is still sick and still holds
it's
up.
Amazing film.
And anybody should still watch that because it's also like the highest grossing indie film of all time still.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I remember seeing that and just being like, you know, I don't know, mesmerized, man. And like, and then throughout the years, seeing other things, you know, I think like what's the word? Like what drew me, I was like several different little performances throughout like certain years where I was like, that's what I want to do. And I could say it was Sam Rockwell in the first Ninja Turtles movie.
Forget, that's such a throwback Sam performance.
Yeah, it was small. It was like one of his first films.
Totally.
Maybe his first. And it was that, River Phoenix and Stand By Me.
Classic.
And then Gary Oldman and True Romance.
Wow.
So those 3 were kind of like
staples.
Of like making me be like, I want to do that. But I will say,
was it acting or just like movie? It was acting.
It was acting. It was always acting. I was like, I want to do that since I was probably 6 years old. You know, I knew that I wanted to do that, and I just didn't start till way later.
I feel you on that.
You know,
But so then, as you're kind of growing up, you know, and I know you're kind of bouncing around. I also went to public school. Were you doing any of like the class plays, or you know, you mentioned music? Like, did you do band or?
No, man, I was not a good student, bro. School was just solidly not for me, as I've realized, you know.
Yeah.
Now, but I didn't do any drama because I was into like punk and skating and like started smoking weed when I was in like 6th grade or something. And I was like, that shit's for fucking. I was like, that shit's for nerds. Like I'm like, I can't do that at school. Like it's suicide, you know.
Yeah.
And so even though deep down I was like, oh, that could be cool.
Be cool, yeah.
But I was just, you know, impressionable little shit. So I was like, I didn't do any of that. And I was a bad student. I dropped out of high school. I didn't finish high school. Talk
to me about that decision. Do you remember that day that you decided that you were just done with it?
Vaguely, yeah. I don't want to go too much into
we don't. Yeah, it's not Jerry Springer.
But. Yeah, totally. It's just like I want to be, you know, cautious. But I hated school, and they were always like, Spencer's so smart, but he doesn't apply himself. I was that kid, or like I was the class clown, or I would just sleep in class, or you know, come to class stoned all the time, and like that's what that's what school was for me.
Totally.
And I just, man, it just didn't click for me, and I just knew there was something else that I could do with my life that wasn't anything based in academia at all. And I know that drama was there, but it was just like that wasn't even an option for me. It just felt like a pipe dream. Like, why would I even do that? That's never going to happen. I'm never going to be an actor. It's always just be this fantasy that I live with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bartend and play in punk bands until I die, I guess. And that's like what my brain was kind of set at.
And then and when you drop out at school, do you feel like, you know, because I finished, and I only say it in the sense of like, I don't think I would know what to do. Do you feel like it was freeing for you in some ways when you left?
In some ways, but also it led me down a darker path in my life. And, you know, I was, I lived on my own. I lived on my own since 17 years old.
Wow.
And so I just had to kind of learn about how to live and survive in life pretty young, you know.
And that could be both a blessing and a curse, I imagine.
Yeah, I think there's definitely trauma that comes with that. There's definitely things that you're not prepared for, and a lot of, you know, crazy shit happened. But that's everybody. Life just, you know, life just happens to people, and you. I find that I have this pretty bottomless well of resilience even to today, like where I've been through crazy shit, and I'm just like, all right, like we're gonna find our way through this. And,
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, for sure.
When you did that, then you kind of mentioned you would do bartending and play music. Was that what you ultimately, when you kind of found your way again, is that what you got into?
Once I finally got out of essentially a pit in my life that I was in for a while, I just eventually found myself there. I was living in Florida, and I just started bar backing in then this bar and started bartending, and that's kind of where I thought
Where
it
in
was.
Florida?
Jacksonville.
Wow. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I was there for about 3 years. Yeah.
Good memories?
Yeah, I have great memories there. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, there's something else out there, and I just felt this, you know, pinch to like find it and pursue that. And
in those 3 years, you're not doing any acting stuff in Jack.
So towards the end, this was kind of this is what it was for me, and why I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. It was a combination of working at this bar and it being the same people, same drink orders, same DJ, same playlist, same conversations. Like I felt like I was living in fucking Groundhog Day.
Totally.
And it was driving me insane. And then one day, the bar manager, her husband owned a small production company in town. And she asked me if I wanted to PA on this music video. And I was like, I don't even know what the fuck that is. But yeah, I would love to go on set or something, you know, because it sounded so interesting to me and,
totally.
and intriguing. And so I decided to do it. And I was on this, like, I don't know, it was like some small Canadian pop stars music video they shot there. And I was doing mostly lockups, but just being on a set, I felt this like electricity. I felt electrified, and I went, "Oh wow, this like I've known this is where I want to be." And so that was like it. I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to be an actor because that's just too hard. But maybe there's a place for me behind the camera that I would be interested in or like find a passion for." And so I started working for them a little bit more.
That production
company. And then they were doing a movie, this like indie feature, and they hired me on, and I was like, I had the grip trailer attached to I had a big truck, and I tried to attached to my truck, and so I served as like grip and then also PA, and like learned all these things and talked to some of the actors on it, and you know, just kind of pick their brains and be like, okay, I want to just know a little bit more about this. And then ultimately what it was that made me really take the leap into film in general, this company from Brooklyn came down to Florida, and they needed a PA for this Grey Goose commercial, and they were shooting
while you were on this film?
The film was done.
Film was done.
Was done.
Was it, just for the audience, was there anyone like big in this film?
I don't know if big's the word, but there's notable actors like he became a friend of mine, but his name's Cullen Moss. He's been around for a long time. He's a character actor.
Amazing.
You know him from a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He worked with Danny McBride a lot on all his projects.
Amazing.
And then Robert Longstreet.
Okay.
Who is also an independent actor, but he's been in tons like Take Shelter. He was in
Was he in Midnight Mass or?
Yes.
Yeah. I know exactly who he is.
He works with Flanagan.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah,
I
he's
love
awesome.
his work.
He's
Great
so
actor.
good. I remember watching him in a scene and being like, just mesmerized by him and being like, whoa, like I've seen for the first time, kind of seeing in person, you know, like seeing an actor work.
And because you didn't go to, you know, traditional drama school, was that really like seeing it done, you know, from being a kid, seeing Sam Rockwell and then seeing the takes?
Yeah.
Like, was that
was the inception
film
point.
School, so to speak, in some ways?
Kind of. I mean, it was the inception point of being like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And so like after that movie, I worked for that company then they were from Brooklyn, and we were staying in a house together in Georgia for 3 days. And I just remember one night they were talking about New York, and they were just talking about New York, and like I was like, that sounds so cool. And then just in that moment I went, oh, I'm actually moving there. And they went, oh, you are? I was like, yeah. And they're like, when? I was like 3 months. And
is that how long it was going to take you to save to move to New York?
I mean, I sold my truck. I picked up shifts. Like, I didn't move here with a lot of money. You know, like I had a floor to sleep on. Like, and that was kind of it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna work in film, and I'll find a department that I like. And so,
and they kept it open to you, like if you come.
Yeah, they said we have jobs for you, and they held their word. I worked for them a lot.
Wow. Did they find a place for you to crash or?
I had a place already.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay,
my
cool.
friend lived here, and I slept on the floor for a while.
Yeah.
And so, but then I realized I was like, okay, let's try it. And I was like, oh, PAing is not what I want to do. And then from there, I worked different departments. Like I did regular production assistant work, and then I found my way into location PA, and I was doing art department. And then I had a friend in costume, and I was trying to work with her, and I was like, ah. And then by the end of it, I was ADing. And this was in like a year and a half of just being like jumping around and giving
here in New York.
Here in New York.
Wait, you don't have to name all of them, but some of the were you doing TV, movies,
or commercials, movies, like big studio features? I remember I worked on Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Wow.
As a PA, like,
for the whole shoot.
No, I was like,
okay.
No. I was like, I probably worked like a couple weeks on that, just spread throughout. But yeah, and I ultimately realized, like, I did a AD job for this short film in Vermont, and I was a second AD, and I realized, like, it's none of this shit. It's acting. It's always been acting. And so I just I've had that, like, that gut feeling, and I went, well, shit, I got to go back to bartending and figure out how to be an actor.
Yeah.
And that was what I did. Yeah.
Wow. And so talk to me about that decision then. Like, obviously, I imagine at this point you're making your survival from doing these production jobs. So then to, you know, as someone who's also worked in bartending, in New York, it's just such a different level because they want craft cocktails and all that dumb shit. So then when you get here, then do you have to kind of like leave that and then re-find yourself in the hospitality circuit here?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, I worked so many different bar jobs. I mean, I had to quit or got fired because I had auditions I wanted to go once I started, like...
Yeah, so talk to me also then about, like, how did you start to integrate in, like, literally deciding to be an actor and then being here? What were your, you know, because, like, I think everyone has that quintessential dream of New York City, I'm going to be an actor.
Yeah,
and,
totally. I know. And I was like, oh my God, this feels like a pipe
And you've
dream.
done it. So, like,
and that's the crazy... It's like it's like I had this blind faith and like this belief in myself that it would happen. I was just, but it wasn't founded on anything. It was just it was like, no, I know I can do this, you know? And I think the biggest thing for me was when I realized I took a class here. And
can you say with who? Or?
It was with Matt Newton.
Matt Newton acting studio.
Yes. That's where I like my first acting class. And I remember I used to start as a beginner, and I was like, okay, like I need to learn things. And I remember I did that scene from Cape Fear with him and Juliette Lewis in the theater or whatever with this girl. And after that, he said, I'm moving you to master class. And I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Like I know that I can do this and I have something, you know. And even then it was probably not good, but it was like there's potential, you
totally.
know. And so that was kind of when I was like, there's somebody that one person told me that I have something here. I could do this, you know. And so then, it was like trying to ask around, read fucking where do you submit to, like Actors Access, Backstage, you know, just doing whatever I could to build a reel to try and find a rep and like.
And how did you find the rep? Because that's like I think to this day is the hardest thing for most people.
Yeah,
Do you remember even like
yeah,
your first?
I do, and it kind of I'll be honest, it kind of fell in my lap, to be honest with you. Like, I was bartending at this bar, and the guy I was working with, it was snowed in, like there was like nobody there, it was dead, and he was like, we were sharing like whatever reels we had, which was like, I think I had like 2 student films and like
Amazing,
you know, whatever.
yeah.
And he was like, I think my manager would like you. He doesn't have anybody like you. And I was like, oh, cool. And so he's like, here's his email. And then I emailed him. And then in that time, I think he had like this crazy injury. So like he was like, I'm out of commission. He's like, but I'm, you know, interested, but just check back in with me in a few months. And then I did. And then he had me come in. He signed me. And that's when I started getting into legit rooms.
Wow.
But I got into legit rooms and I was like pinned callbacks for like all this stuff, and I didn't book for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was like, and I was green, so I was constantly blowing them up and didn't know how, you know, the etiquette
Yeah.
and like, you know, how to, you know, it was like, wait, you know, just, you have to learn, you know.
And did you have an idea? Because obviously, you know, most people takes forever to even get the first legit audition, like to be pinned and avails and those things. Like, did you know that even though you weren't getting on that set as the actor yet, that was like
a victory?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
for
did.
sure. Because I think one of the very first, I think it was my first audition with him, I was pinned, and then I got a call back, and it was down to me and one other guy. And it was on Daredevil the first season or whatever. And they said they gave it to the other guy because he was just played a little older. And I was like, okay. But like when I knew I got to like just me and the other guy, I was like, okay, man, like you're not crazy, and like this, people are seeing this, and like that means that if they like you, you know, the whole thing where you're like, listen, they like you, they keep calling you in, that is important.
Yeah.
You know.
And are these the good old days of like in-person room?
Oh yeah.
So you're building rapport with these casting directors.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because that was 2014 that I started at pursuing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then 2 years now, are you just bartending to keep it going? You're not doing any more production stuff?
No, I was trying to balance it at first, but it was just too much. Like, it was because I also, when I first moved here, I was working with a modeling agency also, and I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
That world.
It's toxic. It makes Hollywood look blue collar.
Yeah, it just felt bad.
Yeah.
At least at that time. Maybe it's who I was working with. I don't know.
Well, I remember you told me this story when we hung out one time. I don't know because I think it was in the production days. Like, didn't you say you PA'd something with Bryan Cranston where you got to write in short?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that one?
No, yeah.
Because you created something, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something I'm, particularly proud of. I think it was like we were green production assistants, and he started a contest for PAs to submit a script anonymously, and he's going to pick the winner. And, we're going to shoot on our last 2 days off, and, he picked me and this other dude's script, and then we shot it with him. And we used like the stand-in for the actress. We used the behind-the-scenes guy who had all the equipment, and like we had a fucking techno crane and like shit like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But like it was so. I'm very grateful for the opportunity and that experience. But it's like a first time, art student, art school.
I just love the positive story that he was cool.
No, it was amazing. He
Yeah.
was really cool and very supportive, and that was like, I will say that's where the fire really got lit, because that was in fall of 2012.
Wow.
And that's where the fire really got lit with acting, where I was like, oh, maybe this is a thing, because I got to talk to him about, ask him certain questions and pick his brain.
And that's like starting to be the apex of Breaking Bad, right?
It was before he shot the last season.
So it was like in the right as it's cooking.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, but he's a great dude, and
then spoiler, you booked Better Call Saul all those years later. So
that was wild. That was a full circle night to be like, I saw him after, because I booked Better Call Saul, and as I was getting the call that I booked it, me and my partner at the time, we were going to see Network on Broadway, which he was starring in, and so I got to see him after and tell him that I booked the job within the mythology of Breaking Bad, and it was like a stars aligning kind of moment for sure.
We'll circle back to that. But so then in this 2 years then, and you're doing this, you mentioned you started with Matt. are you, because like a lot of actors, they do coaches, they go to studios. Were you still staying with Matt? Did you start studying anywhere else, or were you kind of learning by auditioning?
Honestly, like I stayed with Matt for a little bit, and then I felt like I felt like I was getting it from auditioning. I felt like I started to really trust my instincts, and because I felt like, and no disrespect to coaches or anything, like I think they're so important for a lot of people depending on what your process is. But I found that I was always second guessing my instinct when I talked to coaches about things or went to class. And I still feel like at some point for like, bigger roles and stuff, maybe I would want one, but I just feel like my instinct has gotten me this far and I don't want to fuck with it.
Totally.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
I think they're incredibly helpful and important for a lot of people. And it's not to say that I haven't gotten good notes or advice or whatever from coaches because I've worked with private coaches to try them out, and I just find that the work that I book is the work that I don't think too much about, and
you don't over intellectualize it.
Yeah, because it's a very lucid process for me. I don't it's not incredibly cerebral, and like I don't need to analyze everything, and I'm not method and all that stuff.
And then what was the first thing that you did book?
I booked the co-star on The Deuce.
Nice.
Yeah.
And David Simon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. My father actually sent me the other day because, it's become at this point, like I'm grateful to be a working actor, but it's like, it's become work, it's like a job. It's like, I'm excited about things still, but it's almost like you just settle into this place from doing it for so long that you're like, that's my job,
Yeah.
And you lose kind of the excitement of things, and, or other factors aren't lining up, and then you're like, oh, I'm not as excited anymore. But my father sent me this screenshot when I told him that I booked that job, and it's like all exclamation points, and being like,
that's amazing.
And being like, oh, look at the joy, like the unbridled joy that you were feeling from booking this like 2-line co-star in this show, that I was like, why can't I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah,
even for bigger job, I don't feel that anymore.
No, I know.
But it's insatiability, and that's become, it's a detriment and also a benefit, I think.
Totally.
But getting that screenshot was like, oh shit, I was so stoked. I was so excited, and like, but that was
shooting it.
What's up?
How was shooting it?
It was great.
Like,
it was easy.
Did you have that moment of being there finally on the set, and then like?
Yeah, but I also didn't like take it in where I was like bright-eyed, bushy tail. I was kind of just very like, I want to be professional. I want to be locked in. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to like
Who's
really
your scene
hear.
With?
Don Harvey and Lawrence Gilliard.
Yeah.
I think is the,
yeah. Amazing actor.
I worked with those two. It was like, it was like a drug dealer who's hiding drugs, and they were like, we saw that, and then they arrest me.
Yeah. Nice.
But they were really sweet, and they knew it was my first time, and it was a really cool experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that once you got that first thing on your resume, then it started? You started.
Well, I think the confidence of it. Like once I booked that, I was like, I think work begets more work, because you have this confidence that comes from booking a job, and like the next one, you're like, oh, okay,
totally,
I got something here.
One of the best things Rufus Sewell told me when he did this is like, work begets work, but not on your watch.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's so true. Man. Yeah. But yeah, it did. It was like kind of avalanche after that, and then big.
And you were doing all the quintessential New York shows back when like we really had these kind of productions here at the level that they once.
Yeah. I mean. The first, it was like The Blacklist, The Sinner, the first season.
Amazing. What was your first guest star?
My first guest star was on a show that I don't think anybody saw. It's called Gone. It was like a procedural cop drama.
Got it.
It was Danny Pino, Chris Noth, and Levin Rambin.
Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
I know. And they're supposed to be for NBC, but then it went to some other WGN. I don't remember what it was, but I was like, I kidnapped this girl, and I'm just like a scumbag and shooting people, and
But was it cool to like finally shoot something where you could actually sink your teeth into it without being
for sure,
like
having
water?
all these other scenes, not just for sure. Yeah, it was. I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this, and then I realized after that, I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, and just for me, like nothing less. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
And so I said no more co-stars. And then that's when it was like, I think I had, when I said no more co-stars, I think it ended up being like a year and some change where I just like was barely getting auditions or wasn't booking and stuff, because it was like, you got to see me as this. I need you to like see me as in a different light now. And eventually it happened. But
that's talk to me about because I'm in that position myself now, and I know a lot of other actors are. The business is different now.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
At that time, getting that guest star and then making that decision to then not do co-stars. How did you keep the faith? Because obviously the amount of auditions, because they're not going to give you the same volume for the other things.
For sure.
How did you keep your head high and still keep going during that time? Because it is so hard to go back to doing less after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And also market-wise, I could make it a whole argument on why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'll say it wasn't easy. I dealt with a lot of dark times, and I'll say that what really changed it was going to therapy. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of therapy, and that really like helped me to kind of compartmentalize feelings, and I'm not gonna get all therapist on you, but
was that your first time in therapy?
No, I got as a kid.
Okay,
but I just knew I needed to go as an adult, and and so that helped. I was in a partnership that was helpful at that time.
Amazing.
And so
and doing bar work at this time still.
Yeah, but I also I quit drinking for a while, and that was all very helpful, clarity, and but yeah, it had been a long time, and I was close to. Like there was a lot of things that I would get the audition, and then I get very close to these parts, and then I wouldn't go my way, and I'm like, okay. And I'd just be in bed for a day or something, and then be like, I'm sure we've all been there. But eventually it came around,
It's amazing. And at this point then, when it did come around, are we still pre-pandemic here?
Yeah. This was 2018, the end of 2018 is when it kind of came back around. Then I started working again through 2019.
Is that 2019 when you shot Better Call Saul?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that journey and how that, because that's like a New Mexico type show. Was your rep getting you in for? Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I got LA auditions quite a bit, and that's the only time I was doing tapes. So I had to learn how to do self tapes when I was taping for LA.
Wow. So that you already had it in your arsenal before the
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I was already, pretty versed in it and like how I wanted to do it, and all that kind of stuff. But wait, what did you want?
We're talking about Better Call Saul and how that, because like you love that show, right? And you want
absolutely. I love that show, and I just wanted to do it to like just be a part, like kind of come full circle. Like I really was like, I want this part, and I don't remember much about it, man. I taped it with my friend, and I did 2 different takes of each scene just because I was like, they were short, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna do what I want to do here.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They gave me the job, and I was like, okay. And then I went to New Mexico, and I was there for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got to work with Michael Mondo, right? Oh man.
Yeah. I got to work with Michael, and my brain is forgetting the names, but it was a great experience, man.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And that, is another one of those shows like The Deuce or something like that that's just so global. What was that experience? Because when that aired, I'm sure it must have been, everyone was just so stoked to see you on
it's the one that's still like, because it's on Netflix and stuff, people are like, it's the number one that people are like, that hit me up about it, or like that didn't watch it for years, and then they watch it, they're like, oh my God, you just like that. And I'm like, yeah, that was like 6 years ago, which is crazy, but yeah, it's definitely one of those. It's one of those zeitgeist shows, that's like just popular. People will watch,
And then obviously the pandemic happens, and how does that affect you both as an artist and in the business? Then, like, did you feel a need to get out of New York? I know you eventually did.
Eventually, but way out. I mean, No, me and my my partner at the time, we stayed in New York. We stayed in our tiny apartment through all of it, and I went out to LA to get some air, I guess, for a couple of weeks. But no, I found the first half was really hard. I mean, no one was working. It was literally nothing happening, and everybody's in sweatpants and, pigging out and sleeping, and
Totally.
I mean, there's nothing else to do, right? So at least in New York, but I think I'll say I'm trying to lean into this because I've always been this, like, I think when I was young, I've always been very cynical and like bad luck or curse or whatever, and I don't do that anymore. And I've started to kind of count my the good luck in my life and the good things and positive things that have happened instead of focusing on the negative. And it's been a journey in itself. But I think I realized that I was one of the one of the few in 2020 that was working. Like in September 2020, I booked a show that had me flying back from New York to LA from October to March.
Wow. Which one was that?
It was Mayans.
Oh, yeah, right. I remember that. Butterfly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How was that experience?
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool, man. Yeah, I mean, it was just like wild. It was COVID, straight COVID. So you're like, you're getting tests every other day. And, I love the people that I worked with on that. And it was cool just to like be like, oh, yeah, I'm leaving and I'm going, I'm getting out of New York at least.
Yeah.
Where LA, you have more space to breathe out there.
Totally.
When that was happening,
And then at that point, now that you're starting to get these kind of reoccurrings, multiple episodes, do you kind of then level up to then that's kind of where you want to, be? And did LA make sense to you as a pivot point at that? Or was it more about the freedom, in the pandemic and new energy of going out there?
It was a couple years after that I moved to LA.
That.
It was 2022 that I moved to LA. It just felt like, I think it was more personal than professional move for me to
Got
move.
it.
Yeah, I
say that for actors listening because I feel like they're always like, do I go to LA? Do I do New York?
Well, I think right now it's just the business is so vastly different.
Yeah.
From when I started, I'm like, you can live anywhere.
Yeah.
I have friends who live all over this country and they
get auditions.
And they get auditions and they work,
and
I'm like, oh, you don't have to be New York, LA. For me, I feel like that's just where I want to be. I also feel like it's where there is more opportunity. You do meet more people. Like it's just kind of being in the hub of it, But yeah, it was more so just like I needed a change of scenery. Wow. And I had wanted to move to the West my whole life just to try because I've been in the East my whole life. And I was like, I just wanted to check it out, and see how it feels.
And you did, after Mines, you did The Walking Dead, right?
I did Fear the Walking Dead.
Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, the spin-off. Did that. Yeah, that's 2021. I shot that in Texas. Loved everybody on that. It was a really fun experience.
I
like
bet. Those are the dream shows.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, a villain arc, and got to do a lot of cool shit for that I hadn't done. I had to speak Spanish for, I think it was a few pages of Spanish I had to learn to do and learn how to ride a horse for the first time. And yeah, it was a really fun job. It's really hot, but it was really fun.
I bet.
Yeah.
And you were also getting some like real good movie action, right? You did A Man Called Otto, right? Or
that was like a,
in La Cocina. Didn't you shoot that in the pandemic as well?
No, there's still tests because it was a while, but I shot that. I went to Mexico City to shoot La Cocina in February to May of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was in Mexico City that whole time essentially, but I came back for 2 weeks, and that's when I shot that day on Man Called Otto with Hanks. And that was, it was just kind of like, oh, that worked timing wise. I can just pop in into Pittsburgh and do that and then go back to Mexico.
But how about, being in Mexico with Rooney Mara, then going to Pittsburgh and working with Tom? I mean, that must have been a pretty sick moment in your life.
It was, and it's just so...
Like, did you understand that at the time, that this is, or were you just...
It's like my brain doesn't allow me to think these things.
You can't.
You can't?
Yeah.
Like, when I was working with Hanks, there was a moment, like, we're doing the scene, and he's, like, this close to my face, and, like... There was a surreal moment where I was like, that's fucking Tom Hanks, but it's very rare that happens to me. And I think I just want to conduct myself so professionally. And it's also just about the drive, right? And so I don't let myself get swept up in it, which I think can be also hurtful because I'm not allowing myself to feel those things and recognize those things. It's just about what's next. It's not good enough. I want to shoot bigger. Like that's, but I think that's part of my ambition. That's part of what keeps me driven. So, it's a hard balance, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then at that point in 2022, when you do go to LA, do you feel like, at that 2022 for most people is kind of when the mask came off, and we started to sort of kind of get back to a routine at least.
Yeah.
And did it feel like a better thing for you when you finally got out there? Like new energy, new city?
I think so. It kicked my ass when I first moved there, just like New York did. But it's like I found my footing, and I was working a lot when I got there. And
amazing.
It was just like it was working, and I was like, great. And I think I had done 4 or 5 jobs before the strike happened. From I think 4 or 5 between summer of 2022 to when I think it was like April for me. It was my last job in 2023. And then the strike happened.
Talk to me before we get into the strike about Barry, because I remember you really wanted to be on that show.
That was my favorite show. That and Succession.
Like creative visualization is a reoccurring theme that seems to happen for like, Breaking Bad, and like.
It's interesting. Someone pointed that out to me when I was I went out with somebody not too long ago, and they were like, "You realize that you actually do manifest, it sounds like." And I was like, because I'm always like, "Oh, I want to manifest, but I just can't," or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when I step, because in my brain, and I think it comes with the insatiability, is like, well, it's not exactly what I thought it would be, or it's not exactly what I wanted.
Right.
But if I really take a step back and look at the bigger picture, I think that there is some manifestation happening there, because
100%.
I somehow find myself in these places where I want to be, you know? And so I'm trying to focus on that more and appreciate that more. And Barry was like the one show I remember watching the first season, because like right before the pandemic, or like during the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, I think it.
The first season was 2019.
Yeah, it was.
So I remember watching that and being like, this is like a dream show. This is everything I could have wanted in a show.
Yeah. And
I've always been a huge fan of Bill, and I was just like, this show is like, I'm made for this world. And I was like, and I knew that. I felt it. And I was like, I'm going to be on this show.
Yeah.
And then every season that happened, I'd be like, anything? And they're like, unless you want to do this? And I was like, no, I'm waiting for a bigger thing. I'm just holding out.
Right.
And then season 4, I was like, I knew it was the last one. And that role came, and I was like, oh, this is it. And I felt it. And I was like, no, this is my part. Like, this is the one. And I did the tape, and then I got the job, and it was like crazy, because you never get your favorite things. You never say like, oh, I'm gonna get, like, it's very rare that ever happens. And so it was a wild one for sure.
I was working with Bill Hader.
He's the best.
Yeah,
he's the best. He's just so fun. He's like so collaborative and open. Yeah, he's just open to ideas, and he's just so smart. He's just such a great director, you know. Yeah, I loved working with him, and it's like almost like when he wanted to cut a scene, he'd laugh, and then like, it's like, he's very pleased, and it just felt, it was a really great experience. I loved working with him.
I love that for you, man. It was so great, and I was so glad to see that.
Yeah,
and
thank you, man.
I imagine at that point, that's kind of almost bringing us up to the strike, like, you had at this point with that roster of all those credits and all these greats, like a little bit more agency on what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And, obviously, like, having some tattoos, I imagine you were getting typed for some things. Were you at a certain point, at any point, trying to strategically work against things you maybe have done before?
Oh, absolutely. That's the goal now. It's like we're really pushing. And I'm open. Like, the thing is, like, I'm not against playing to my type. I think it's a privilege to have a type. But I want to be seen on the other side of the law, or the other side of some different kind of energy. Yeah. As well. I want to play both sides, I mean, Gary Oldman's my hero, and like that's, he plays both sides, and he plays them beautifully, and that's the goal. And so it is about strategy, and that's, with my reps and everything, it's like, that's all it is. And so it's a lot of passing on things, even right now, I'm like, the times are tough for everyone, but I have to keep the bigger picture in mind. And so I think, I lost my place.
With the bigger picture in mind, like, and we're talking about the strike being hard, so we go through the strike. Yeah.
So the strike, I I can talk about this because it got announced, but I did a Apple series. I did the pilot of this new...
The Ridley Scott one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he directed, called Dope Thief. And that was the last job. And that was like... It was kind of, it was like, oh, shit. Like, this was the biggest director I had worked with.
When you say last job before the strike.
Before the strike.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was crazy because to come from that high and then the 2 months later, it was like, oh, no. And like, and just being like, well, okay, whatever I made, that's going, gotta drain everything and pay my bills and like everybody else. And I feel like I was probably in I recognize I'm a bit fortunate position to at least be able to pay my bills, but
to be on a set with, Brian Tyree Henry, I think is number one on that,
yeah,
right?
Brian, and Wagner Moura and Ridley.
Like, how was that?
Oh, it was awesome, dude. It was I was very nervous. I have to do a crazy, not crazy, but just like a very thick Pennsylvania Delco accent. Wow. And that took a lot of, it's a really difficult accent. And yeah, it was a really, so I just felt really welcomed and I don't know, like definitely just really clicked with everybody on that one.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
And that's going to be coming out soon.
That comes out March 14th.
March 14th. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
On Apple, yeah.
And then, like obviously getting to work, you've worked with some amazing people, but like Ridley, I mean, what was that like,
Well, when I worked with him, he was 86 years old. He's nearing 88 now.
Wow. And
he's so locked in. He's so like, he knows exactly what he wants. I mean, he shot with like 8 cameras at once at times. And like I don't even know how you hide those.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a master of his craft, and it was an honor. And he really, thankfully took a liking to me. And yeah, it's just, I loved working with him. He was awesome. Yeah.
And then, during the strike, not much is going on for anyone.
No.
And I think, it was almost like a year ago now, you went to Sundance with your film, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a year ago. Yeah, I went to Sundance with this indie feature called Little Death. And that was cool. It was cool to like, do that. Because I think always for like my whole career so far, I've had to miss premieres, either for work, obligations, or like things like that where I just couldn't go.
Yeah. And
it felt good for like last year to be like, right? Last year? Jesus. I forget where we are.
Yeah, no,
the last year. Yeah, right.
Because Sunday is about to happen.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So last year, getting to do all the premieres, like I got to go to Sundance and I went to Berlin for La Cocina.
Wow.
And I had Tribeca for La Cocina here, and like to knock all those out, like to be like, oh, I went from 0 to
the biggest,
the 3, and that was a cool part of last year for sure.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, we don't have to specify when, but I know you changed reps to a really great one then, and do you feel like that has kind of brought you some new horizons and things you're getting to go in for?
Yeah.
Amazing.
For sure. Yeah, I'm very happy.
And you just did a show with Kristen Ritter and Kiefer, right? Didn't you?
Did a movie.
A movie.
Yeah,
okay.
I did a movie called Stone Cold Fox. It was a blast. I played, he was very Weasley like henchman to Kristen Ritter, and she was great. Kieran Shipka, Kiefer was amazing. That was like because like the Lost Boys was like, one of those movies too. I would also put Kiefer Sutherland and Lost Boys as another one that was like a pinnacle kind of like for me as far as like wanting to act when I saw it when I was like 7 years old, and I was like, whoa. So getting to work with him was felt like another one of those kind of like full circle things, and showed him my Lost Boys tattoos, which I never do. I'm always I conduct myself so I don't ask for photos. I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, the 7-year-old may be pissed if I didn't share these with him.
That's awesome. I bet he loved it.
Yeah, he did.
And talk to me, because like obviously you're having so much success and it's so well deserved. I said at the beginning, but I imagine there are a lot of actors, that like since the pandemic's happened, it's changed for everyone.
Yeah.
And particularly for actors that did not have guest stars yet or any credits whatsoever. There's so many ways you could say that it's easier, but there's a lot of ways you could say it's never been harder.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sure a lot of people hit you up for advice. And, I think people just have a tendency to think something's wrong with me or I'm doomed. And, for the actors listening now that, are out there fighting the fight and they're doing these tapes and they don't get to meet the casting director. Is there any words of wisdom you might have?
I think just trying to find the blind faith inside yourself, if you can find it, because I and leaning into. I think that it's important to have a percentage of delusion with this career, but I also think like it's a business of attrition, and if you have something to offer and you really truly know that in your gut, you just don't give up. I mean, that's what everybody says, right? But it's true. I think that people will let go and people will quit, and like only increases your odds. I would hope so. And so it's definitely the hardest. I mean, from people that I know that have been working for a long time, like that have been series regulars and stuff, they're like, this is the hardest it's ever been. Yeah. And so I can imagine what's like for people who are just coming into this, like getting out of school and wanting to start. I'm like, my heart honestly like feels for them. Like I have a lot of empathy for people who, and especially because I've gotten those messages about, advice and stuff. And, during like certain times, if they ask me on the wrong day, I'm like, they're like, what's the one thing you would tell them? Like, so I remember a friend asked me, like, my friend wants to move to LA right now and like wants to pursue acting. If you give one word of advice, what would you say? And I said, don't.
No, but it's fair. It's
fair.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be discouraging.
Yeah.
It's just right now.
Yeah.
I fully believe, like, I know there's a lot of people that feel differently about this, but I think, and maybe it's for my own sanity and not leaning into futility, is feeling like we're going to come back around. Like I'm being optimistic, I think, because I feel like I have to be. And it's almost, I don't want to say it's denial, but it's just something that I feel like it can't just keep plummeting. I can't believe that. And I think that we're in a crazy contraction, and it's going to level out, and there's going to be more work again. And, I really do hope they start doing more in-person auditions again. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know in London they are, because they're just,
ahead of everything.
Ahead of everything.
Yeah.
I had my first in-person audition last year.
Amazing. In LA?
In LA.
Wow.
And I was like, I went to Paramount and I was like, dude, I miss this. I don't want to see the frame. I don't want to fuck with anything that has to do with like the aesthetic of how this tape looks. I just want to come in, do my thing, not overthink it, get those moments that you're not trying to perfect everything, and just leave,
Totally.
And it was exhilarating.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I hope they bring that back. And I hope they bring that back for people to experience that again.
Yeah, to build the communities. That's what we need.
Yeah,
it's a business of relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't get to do that with self-tapes. It's just farts in the ether, man.
Totally.
That's what it feels like.
It feels worse than Bumble. You know what I mean? It really does. But that's amazing, man. And I know we can't talk too much about it, but well, first we talked about the movie you have coming out with Kristen. And what are some other things that you've done? Because we can end with Marty Supreme, but is there anything else that you have upcoming you want to plug?
Well, no. We talked about him, actually, because the stuff that's coming out this year is Dope Thief.
Yeah, okay.
Marty and Stone Cold Fox.
But what little can you say, because I know that press release came out, you just did Marty. How was that experience?
It was incredible. That's another one of those, honestly, those manifesting moments that I was like kind of taken aback by, because when I first started meeting with managers and stuff, they asked me, who are the top 3 directors you want to work with, and the Safdies were in there. Yeah. And it's just kind of wild to be like, oh, I did it. Like, it's these many years later, but it happened. So it's like, it's not on your timeline, right? It's not when you want it to be. It's Never. Like, and I've learned that it can come much, much later.
Yeah.
But that experience was amazing. And the fact that, just working with Josh on this film, which is, essentially it's one of the biggest films A24 has ever done.
I've heard.
It was amazing working with, I worked with Timmy and Tyler, the creator, and
so badass.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just I don't know how much I can actually say, but
no, I get it. I auditioned for it. I know. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'm just like Yeah. But the press release is out, so I can say that much. But
that's amazing.
It was just a really fun experience, and the way he works was so challenging and exhilarating, and I really can't wait for people to see that. I can't wait to see it myself.
Yeah,
I don't
totally.
Know, I don't know what the movie is even, what even happens, you know? So
amazing, man. Well, dude, Spenser, thank you for coming on, man. I'm so proud of you, dude. And
thank you, brother.
Man, you deserve it all. And
thank you.
It's just amazing to see all the things that have happened for you and the things that you've created and the ability to stay resilient, because I think that's what I hope, you know, myself and everyone listening takes away, because it really is just a business of attrition.
It is. It is. It's all about resilience and just like keep a firm grip, like a death grip on that, you know, the branch, I guess. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's
awesome. Well, dude, love you, brother. Thanks for coming on, man.
You
and
too, man.
Let's do it again next time.
Yeah,
all
for sure.